Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the newest installment of THAC0 Radio, where we discuss the topics of the day in terms of entertainment. Primarily things like Dungeons and Dragons, booze, rock music, movies,
pop
card
culture,
games,
gaming, video
stuff.
games, pop culture, pulp in general, anything that has kind of driven our generation's culture, and just the things we like things like this. This week's show podcast is brought to you by this thing right here, which if you can read, you're probably old enough to drink it, and this other fine adult beverage my friend is drinking, brought to you by none other than
Billy D. Williams.
the very one.
This is the only Star Wars related malt liquor that you can consume.
Shout out to my man Clinton Ross having the Billy D. Williams Colt 45 sign. Works every time, baby, every time. So this week we've got a couple things we're going to talk to you about. Miniatures, Dwarven Forge, monsters, stuff like that. But so want to thank you guys all for joining us here and in the dungeon, as we like to call it. Actually, I just made that up. That's not really what they call this place.
We call it the D&D room. It's too small to play D&D in.
Although I could fight a goblin in this room.
Sure, it's
It'd be
perfect
close
for
quarters.
that.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about miniatures. Here's
Let's
an
do it.
example
Let's
of
do
one. I think I painted this one in 1983 or so.
Here, let me help you out here. Watch this.
Actually, my friend Anthony painted it.
And it's quite a nice paint job on that door. I know that I wouldn't be going through that door.
Yeah, they
That's-
call it
that's-
the demon door, and it's
appropriately so.
intimidating. You got to put it up there for every now and again, just to make people a little cautious when they want to open doors.
I've never painted miniatures, but a lot of my friends that I played games with in college were huge Warhammer 40K players, and they painted just thousands upon thousands of Space Marines and Eldar and all kinds of stuff, and the paint jobs are just incredible. I can't believe the amount of tenacity and perseverance it takes to paint a whole army.
It's an entirely different hobby.
Yeah, it really is.
It's great. I mean, I think the cool thing is when you get a blank miniature and you want to make it your own. So you incorporate all the color scheme of the character itself, but you kind of start from scratch. So the pre-made miniatures, and now we've got plastic ones that are pre-painted. The cool thing about them is now you don't have to paint. If you encounter 20 orcs, you don't have to paint each and every orc. And that's probably unless that's your hobby type, you probably don't want to have to paint 20 orcs.
It's a lot of prep work as a DM.
Right, but
It's a
if
lot of
it's
prep
your
work.
guy, if you're like, this is Eldar the Magnificent who always wears green, then you paint your guy his specific color scheme. And conversely, like the Wizards of the Coast miniatures, their monsters are really cool, but their characters, the fighters, the elves and whatnot, most of them don't look like something you would want your character to be.
I feel that. I think that, if I had like a miniature that, you could order online to look exactly like you wanted your character to look, I'd paint that. For sure, I would definitely
Well,
paint
they have there's a customizable site where you can, how in a MMORPG where you pick all the facets of your character. So you're like, he's got this color hair and stuff. There's a miniature company that does that.
Really?
Yeah. So you basically just,
What's the company called, do you know?
Is it Hero Forge?
I'm going to look that up. Custom miniature company.
We only had a computer.
If only.
I think might be Hero Forge. But if it's not, shout out to HeroForge.com.
And my new Kickstarter is going to start
.org.
making custom miniatures.
Yeah, well, they did a Kickstarter, as a lot of companies do, which I'm kind of ambivalent. The sad part about a Kickstarter is a lot of companies are doing Kickstarters. I support them, and then I hate them forever because they don't send me the product within 4 years.
Yeah.
So, and the people that have done it right are like Reaper, Goodman Games, Dwarven Forge, and those are it takes a lot to get to the next level, so to speak. But when you're buying things like injection molds and stuff, the prices are rather high. So having that money, having everyone pony up ahead of time can work really well. It's a similar method to pre-ordering, but I think with with publishing, a lot of people should stick with the pre-ordering concept because it's paper. You write the thing and you say how many we're printing, and everyone says, "Oh, I'll take 2 or whatever," and then they send you the money, and then you print it.
I would probably like painting miniatures a lot more if I was a more patient person and had more determination in life, because I definitely, every time I go into a comic store or a game store, I always go to the case and look at all the painted armies and stuff, and it's incredible to me, and really it is art, it's fantasy art, and I love it. And seeing what my friends used to do, my friends Hebo and Phil, when they would paint all their minis and stuff, I just loved how they looked. And I always felt like whenever I was watching them play Warhammer and they had like half the army painted and the other half not, I was like, oh, come on, those guys shouldn't be allowed on the field of battle, But it's such an incredible amount of resource and time put into it. I don't smoke that much weed to be able to do that, really.
You just have to not have a job, girlfriend,
any other hobbies,
additional friends that don't play Warhammer or have Warhammer painting parties. Yeah, well.
Although, I will say this though, there is one thing I do like painting, model wise, and it's Gundams. I've made some Gundams in my day, and I've made some where you don't paint them and you just kind of stick them all together. They're really neat because you don't use glue, and there's different grades of difficulty, and you can put decals on them. But I've always found that the ones that turn out really, really fantastic are the ones where you paint the pieces as you go and then wait for them to dry and then stick them all together. The paint actually in the little peg and hole adds a little additional friction for making it stick, and they end up looking really, really cool.
Shout out to additional friction. Yeah, I've got a ton of garage kits where people have molded these creations, and you're supposed to paint them and glue them together. And well, I have a ton of them, but
you have a ton of garage kits. I don't believe you don't have a ton of anything. You actually might have a metric ton of books in here, though. That I do believe.
Yeah, at least.
If the walls of this place ever fell, the stacks of books would probably still hold the foundation and the ceiling up, which is good.
Well, it might be the same in the bedroom, but they could kill you.
So, as far as miniatures, you were talking about Dwarven Forge, and you said there's a documentary or something about it?
Yes, it's called The Dwarfanaut, and I think it was produced by Peter Atkinson of Wizards of the Coast. It's about Stephen Corney, the Dwarven Forge fella.
You're just dropping names everywhere.
Well, you can Google them.
I'm just messing with you.
But it's slightly biographical, and it covers covers Dwarven Forge through their second to last Kickstarter, where they're doing the city version, and whether he's going to make a couple $1 million and make it happen. It's pretty cool.
You got that one,
I hope so. They show him when he goes to Gary Con and I think Gen Con and maybe Origins, some of the conventions, and it's pretty cool. I think it's about between an hour and a half.
You said it's on Netflix?
Netflix.com.
Nice. I will say that I've never really used minis a whole lot when I've gamed, but since gaming with you and seeing all the dungeon tiles and walls and figs and stuff, it's neat. I really like it. But there's one thing in particular, a mini prop that you have that I really like, and it's the little tile that has the torch on it, that has the little switch on it and illuminates. Yeah. That's really, really cool.
That's from the Dwarven Forge City Builder set.
Nice. That's in the grand scheme of gaming. Me and Joe talk about this a lot because we've both been players and GMs quite a bit in our life. Theme. It's all about theme. When you're the DM, I often believe that you should be, or at least try to be, the most charismatic person in the room because you're trying to create an environment of fun for your players.
Thank you.
And there's no better way to create theme and environment than miniatures and music. It really puts something that's only in your mind or your imagination or on paper into sight, which we as humans are visual creatures. 30% of our brain, visual cortex and whatnot. But yeah, so yeah, I've really enjoyed the use of minis in the campaigns.
And I would stress music too, because it's
absolutely
the miniature thing. It's hard. Like lighting. If you've got a bunch of candles or something, you're trying to create a mood, but you also have to look at your character sheets, see what's going on. That's why we stopped playing in Atomic, because after 7 p.m. it got dimmer and dimmer. Nice bar, but because couldn't see our character sheets. We actually had to use that tiny little candle to see with.
That may be a really neat way to incorporate game restrictions into player range. So imagine you are DMing a campaign where your character is in a dark dungeon and one guy has dark sight and no one else does, and so you start dimming the lights in the room to where your players can't read their character sheet effectively.
Well, that's when they would light a torch. That's the whole...
Sure.
But the players will be willing to play a game where their character itself would be scared to death. They're like, well, we'll just let what's his name that can see in the dark figure it out. And you're like, you would never do that, because you would be plunged in darkness underground. Who knows what would happen? Your character would never go for that.
As a player, I always try to really overcome the things that I know as a person and the way I would feel as a person, and really try to get into the character. So if my character would be in a place where he can't see and it's dark and would be scared or hesitant, I try to do that, even though I know that we got 3 people in the party that can see. And as a GM, I also award additional experience to people when they actively try to role play what their character would do when it's against what they naturally would do.
Yes, because that would be role-playing. The idea is like, well, I'm playing my character and he's never scared of things that he would be scared of, is what I would call bullshit, which I think players are prone to do, which is the whole reason, like, your character goes to a tavern, okay? There's booze, there's whores, there's no reason for your D&D character to get with a prostitute unless they want to roll on the random disease table, right?
Wait, prostitutes have diseases?
Some do.
Oh, okay.
Not all of them. I don't want to shame the prostitute community. Someone could be their first day of the tavern wench. Or consuming alcohol, you're just going to roll on the fumbliness table. There's no... technically, your constitution would increase, your dexterity would decrease, but there isn't, or
wisdom decreases.
Or with rations, your character's like, I buy the cheapest rations there are, or I eat peasant meals every day. Your player's morale.
Peasant meals. Beans and mayo.
Your survival based. So your character, his morale will not reduce, providing the player's cracking the whip on him. NPCs, yes. If you feed your troops peasant meals, they will suffer. And that's what, the character that wants to cut costs with his gold might do that with the troops. But eventually they'll revolt. But the key with role-playing is your character's like, I want to treat myself once in a while. Now I'm going to buy a merchant's meal or a pint of good wine.
Sure.
Or rather than mead, I'm going to go with ale.
That brings up an interesting point, and it's all about,
Thank you.
GMing, I feel, really is always just adapting to the environment. So in a case where maybe your PCs buy some expensive rations, maybe they talk to an NPC they might not otherwise, who has a taste for finer wines or something, But I'll tell you an example about a drinking thing that I did in a game that I played once. And I can't take credit for this idea. Well, kind of, but I'll explain. So there was a quest I played in DDO, Dungeons & Dragons Online, where you basically had an illusion cast on you to where you look like a beholder. You go into this bar in the abyss or something, and you have a drinking contest with another beholder. And the thing is like literally trying to drink you under the table. And so all your players are sitting there like, drinking these drinks. You have to click on it. Every time you do, you roll a con check, and your con keeps decreasing because you're drinking effectively poison and getting all whooped up. And then eventually you drink the beholder under the table, and then you go on your merry way. So I really like that concept and that idea. So what I did in a game that I DM'd once is I had a drinking contest like this with the players and with one of the NPCs in the bar, and they won like a key that allowed them to go on the quest or whatever. And I did it at the end of the gaming session, to where what I did was I said, okay, I took everyone's constitution in the party, and then also made a modified version of their player's constitution based on what their physical constitution was, and then I had an actual drinking contest with other players and myself, and proceeded to drink them under the table, and then tried to have them get into a couple of different altercations with NPCs, and it was very enjoyable because I was really force feeding the shots to these folks, and it was fun. And it was
you know what the perfect shot is?
The money shot?
No, Fireball.
Oh, okay.
Fireball, bread, cinnamon whiskey. Our next sponsor, perhaps.
That one.
But that is,
that one.
yeah, I've heard of these people that kind of LARP D&D thing where they go to different bars and they're trying to level up. And they're like, well, if there's a monster, you got to cast Fireball.
You could cast Avalanche.
Is that a drink?
Yes, it is.
I would think Mudslide. I don't know what an Avalanche is.
Avalanche is like...
I don't even know what a Mudslide is.
Aftershock. There's a couple different alcohols that I think have relatable D&D names, I bet. Like my favorite is Minotaur Slayer, which is I'm just kidding, it's not a real thing. I'm sure there's...
I need to drink at that bar.
I'm sure there's definitely some beers, though, that have names related to D&D.
Oh, Critical Hit by Ninkazi. Shout out to Ninkazi.
There you go. I know that I think Pipeworks out of Chicago does a beer called Ninja vs. Unicorn, and they've got some other stuff. I know Three Floyds does an Imperial Dreadnought, which if you need something for backup when you're storming the castle, milady, Imperial Dreadnought's always a good choice.
Okay, I thought that was a Star Wars reference.
It may be, but I'm pretty sure that Imperial Dreadnought is probably also
Just
some kind of...
any queen or king that sends
some sort
any
of
freighter
Gollum-esque.
or...
I just assumed...
Well, Dreadnought's a boat, right?
I assumed it was a golem of some sort.
Golem?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is a boat. Who knows?
Yeah, I think a Dreadnought's a boat. When we turn off our computer, we can Google it. Who knows?
Indeed.
But we'll forget by then.
Unless we write it down. Check Dreadnought.
It's, yep.
So we have a couple questions this week that questions of the week. So, couple questions here. Favorite monsters as a GM or a player? So, Joe Franke, your favorite monster as a GM to throw at a group of players, and why? I like kind of the standards, goblins, orcs, but I like to throw something in the mix to make it different. Like if it's getting so their preconceived notions are going a certain way, then I want to switch it up. Like when thought they were fighting a carnivorous ape, and they killed it, and its last few moments were sign language, trying to talk to the party. Then they felt like shit afterwards. So that was glorious. The monster, I mean, killing an ape's it's not a big deal. Yeah, I did that just last week, actually.
Boy, that was satisfying. So the spin on that, or lizard men are good because they're neutral. So there's a reasonable chance that you could, like, say, hey, which way is it to there? And they would just tell you. Versus, like, we have to
that's a stupid
kill
question, because
or
which
not.
way to there is obviously that way, right?
It'd be there, yeah. It'd be that. Yeah. You're right. That was a stupid question. I mean, which way to somewhere? Right? I should have put quotes or parentheses.
So you like the mundane, mildly intelligent creatures that you can twist, is what you like as a...
Well, I think when players read the monster manual too much, and that's the cool thing about in the Fiend Folio, they put these spins in first edition, where it looks like a skeleton, but then once you attack it in the way that you would attack a skeleton, bad things happen.
Explodes or
shards of skeleton stuff stick in you. That is the spin on that, because otherwise they go, oh, I prepare, I turn, or I do this, or I bring out my blunt weapons, or I think you want to keep them guessing, and part of that is rather than saying rather than saying the name of the creature, you would describe the aspects. It's like a hooded thing with glowing eyes, and who knows.
That was always a fun thing as a player, is trying to figure out what exactly it was you're fighting, and then all of a sudden it has some ability you don't know about, and you're like reeling or something. So, what about favorite monster to fight as a player?
Giant rats.
Right.
Whatever has nutrition, treasure type X. I don't know. Yeah, I mean it's a good one. I think it's kind of all over. It just depends on the narrative.
Sure.
Like there's ones where you're like, well, if I'm fighting this creature or this giant construct, maybe I should just remove that gem from its forehead, and that might save us all.
Sure.
Unless it's just a matter of hacking the thing to death. So how about you? Or less.
I have a few different favorite monsters that I love to throw at PCs for a number of reasons. Most of the reasons are based on the difficulty of the monster. I love Elithids. They're just so mean and can attack in so many different ways. Those are obviously higher level monsters.
These are mind flayers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But one of my all-time, and Rust monsters obviously are such a pain in the ass, they just make players go crazy. But one of my all-time favorites that I encountered when I was very young playing as a PC that I absolutely hated, that I love throwing at people, rot grubs.
Oh yeah.
Like they're like a challenge rating 1 insect that comes in swarms and just burrows under your skin and like does damage over time of like 1 or 2 hit points. And if you ever need to get player characters out of their armor really quickly, throw some rock grubs at them, and then all of a sudden they're trying to burn themselves to death with fire to get rid of the rock grubs.
Yeah, I like that illustration in I think it's the Monster Manual.
Yeah.
Dave Trampier, whatever, where they're just coming out of his arms.
Yep. So those things are
Disturbing.
just really, really hardcore and nasty because I mean it's almost like you don't even know how to get rid of them. That's always one of the challenges that's really fun as a DM and a player is coming across challenges that you just can't even wrap your mind around how to overcome it. And like as a GM, that's fun watching your players become inventive and creative for figuring out ways to overcome that type of stuff.
Yeah, it also seems like a source of argument. Like, how long does it take to take off my armor? Or, why can't I just sleep in my armor?
Yeah.
And, my, like, bone to pick with the players was they were always wanting to sleep in a dungeon. You're like, you're sleeping on cement or, stone floor in a suit of armor, and you want to feel refreshed in the morning. Why?
You're such a hardcore DM. You absolutely are.
Well, no, I'm not. They were the ones that wanted to rest, and in a lot of cases they could power it through, but they would take the journey all the way back to town to be at max hit points and spells whenever they attacked anything.
I think my next wizard character I'm going to write a 0-level spell or a 1st-level spell. It's going to be called efficient sleep or decent slumber that will allow you to get good sleep while in armor and on stone.
Well, they have that, like, essentially the wizard's
tiny hut.
It's like a hotel that you can stay in, and they've got like some guard.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, way to take all the adventure out of its spell.
As a player, I think my favorite monsters to kill.
To kill? Or to encounter.
See, I think either one.
I think we're onto something here, because technically the encounter it's not like chess where you have to just kill the guy.
Sure.
You can actually learn something from time to time.
As a PC, I like the encounters with potential hostiles to where it could go either way. Like the neutral things, like Displacer Beasts are technically neutral. I think. I'm pretty sure. They might be evil, I'm not sure, but there's something related to that where the creature is from a neutral plane, and there's a possibility that you can, get out of it without a fight, or befriend it, or, have it be a familiar, or learn something from it, or something to that effect, other than just the stereotypical hack and slash. But everybody loves killing dragons, though. That's always a high five anytime you can do that deed.
Even lawful good dragons.
Hell yeah, especially lawful good dragons. Because they're usually smarter, and if you can trick them into getting behind them and stab them a bunch of times.
I guess that's when you realize that you grab charisma as the dump stat.
Never.
Never. When you're trying to reason with the Displacer Beast, and you go, oh, why does my character have a 6 charisma? It's time to orate.
Reroll. All right, so now your least favorite monster as a GM to have PCs fight. Like when you're just like, you're running a module or something, and the module's like, oh, throw some of these at the players, and you're like, oh, more of these.
That wouldn't be a monster thing. It would be more of a rules thing where something does all this grappling. Like in some of the older versions, it'd be a creature with a bunch of tentacles, but each creature each tentacle reacts as a different creature, but then you can kill the thing's head, but it's more of a rules stumbling block than a what kind of...
When different parts of a creature have different hit points.
Yeah, they're like, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but then somehow you reach a rules stumbling block, you're like, well, I never thought of that, or is that how it is when we just attack different parts of a monster? Because normally I'll just attack the monster's neck, right? Yeah. If I kill the neck, the monster fucking dies.
Yeah, I think what I've always done when I've had something that has that potential, like a Hydra or a dragon or something like that, and somebody's really only in position to attack the tail or a flank or something like that, is
right.
I won't say that like a specific body part takes X amount of damage. I'll just, as the creature's damage decreases, I'll make a judgment call and say, okay, well, it can't use its tail anymore, or it can't fly anymore because one of its wings is shredded or something to that regard.
But that's more of the storytelling aspect of D&D,
that's absolutely what it is.
Based on the idea that hit points don't mean actual, like, if you have 10 hit points, that doesn't mean you have 10 units of blood and they're spilling out each time.
Sure.
It's more like a combination of luck and your armor and that sort of thing.
I think personally my least favorite monsters as a GM and or a player are just the mundane things. The giant rats, the lizard men, the kobolds, the shit that like everybody's seen and slayed hundreds and thousands of. Well, that to me just, it's hack and slash and it's D&D and it's fun, but if I'm going to do that, do it in a way where it's more challenging, like fight Sahagin underwater, or fight like 1,000 kobolds through like a choke point 10 at a time, or...
I did that in D&D online.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. So if I'm gonna have monsters I don't like to fight, or like a horde of skeletons, make it to where like they reanimate, or just give it some other spin other than like the regular old tribe of like 20 orcs or something. That just, to me, it's mundane. It's beat. It's old. It's old hat. D&D is about imagination and fun and like thinking about crazy stuff. And
it depends who you're playing with, though.
Sure.
Some people, maybe they've never seen an orc before.
It's true.
Maybe
I've never personally seen an orc, but
Right, but their character, or someone that's new to the game, and I think the way to do it is you describe the creature like you're seeing it for the first time. You don't say, hey, there's some orcs, You guys seen Lord of the Rings? It's those guys. If you say there's this creature, some kind of inhuman monstrosity, but with the height of a human, but he's armed to the teeth, then it gets interesting. Like, instead of going, oh, it's 5 goblins, and people go, oh, they've got 1 to 4 plus 1 hit points apiece, so let's start hacking it apart. Yeah.
So we got a couple minutes left here, and I wanted to maybe ask some of our viewers to send us some messages with your least favorite types of monsters to use as a GM or a player, your favorite types of monsters to use as a GM or player. And then, you guys can always send us topics of conversation that you would like us to cover. And we were also going to talk about recent movies and shows and do a couple reviews on some things. Joe saw Suicide Squad recently, and he wanted to talk about that. But we might save that for the next PCast. But because we only got a couple minutes left here. But
I can do it. Let me sum up.
All right, go.
Suicide Squad. If you only see one movie at the theaters this summer, don't make it Suicide Squad. It's just not good. I was kind of hoping it would be good, but it was not. From the horse's
mouth, not good.
Yeah, if
the opposite of good.
If one of your relatives is in Suicide Squad or worked on the crew,
well, we're sorry.
Sorry,
I've not seen it. I cannot make a review. But
it was. The only people I think that benefited from Suicide Squad was the song licensing people.
I'd be willing to bet the Halloween costume industry benefited from it.
Oh yeah, well the Hot Topic.
You're going to see a lot of Harley Quinns this year, I'd bet.
Oh, they're making them, and boy, it's gonna be played out instantly. But they licensed almost every song I can think of. It was like the White Stripes, Queen, maybe the Stones. Just they tried to punch that thing up with. They're like, well, we'll just throw in some hits. It'll almost be like a music video with stuff. And
So one of the shows or movies that I wanted to just blurb real quick that I just can't get enough of is Mr. Robot. They're in the second season. Currently, they are awaiting on the season finale next week, and that show really is just all that in a bag of chips. And I will talk more about that on the next cast you guys see us on. So I'm Matthew Houts. This is
Joe Franke.
All right, and we'll see you guys soon on THAC0 Radio. Take care, guys. Have a good one.